More coffee? I asked. The woman in the cashmere coat didn't look up. She just tapped her manicured nail against the mug. Make it fresh, she snapped. God, Richard, imagine ending up in a place like this. It smells like failure. My father just nodded. Across from them, my siblings, Olivia and Cody, didn't even blink. To them, I wasn't their daughter or sister. I was just the help, a ghost in a grease-stained apron. Kimberly raised her glass. To tomorrow, she grinned. To Grandma Beatrice finally kicking the bucket and making us rich. My hand shook as I poured. They were celebrating my grandmother's death. And they had no idea that the waitress standing right there was the only one named in the will. Before I tell you what I put in their coffee, figuratively speaking, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I want to see who's awake with me. They walked out without looking back. No recognition, no tip. Just a pile of crumpled napkins and the lingering scent of expensive perfume cutting through the smell of bacon grease. I stood there, staring at the table. Olivia had touched up her makeup before leaving, and her purse was still sitting open on the vinyl seat for a split second before she snatched it up. It was a vintage Chanel. $5,000. I did the math instantly. It is a habit you develop when you are poor. You stop seeing objects. You start seeing survival time. That purse was not just leather and gold stitching to me. It was 6 months of rent in my studio apartment. It was 200 double shifts standing on concrete floors until my knees felt like they were filled with broken glass. It was safety. She carried my entire survival on her shoulder as a fashion accessory, and she did not even know I was the one refilling her water. That is the illusion of the empty wallet. To them, money is just a tool for pleasure. To me, it is the difference between sleeping in a bed and sleeping in a car. And they had stripped me of every cent I was worth 5 years ago. I cleared the plates, my movements mechanical. I remembered the day they kicked me out. I was 18. Kimberly had decided I was a liability to her perfect suburban portrait. She did not just want me gone, she wanted to be the victim. She told my father I was unstable, violent. She staged scenes, broken vases, missing jewelry, and blamed me. She painted a picture of a dangerous stepdaughter who threatened the safety of her real children. And Richard? My father? He did not defend me. He did not ask for proof. He just looked at his new wife, looked at his comfortable life, and decided I was the price of admission. He chose his peace over my existence. He let them file a restraining order based on lies, claiming they feared for their safety. They put me on the street with a trash bag of clothes and $50. I spent 5 years clawing my way up from nothing, sleeping in a shelter, washing dishes, taking the night shifts no one else wanted. I built a life out of scraps. I learned that family is not blood. Family is the people who do not leave you behind. Tonight, watching them laugh, watching them spend money they did not even have yet, waiting for Grandma Beatrice to die, something inside me finally snapped. It was not hot anger. It was cold. It was the feeling of a balance sheet finally zeroing out. They thought they were untouchable. They thought the bad blood was gone. But as I wiped down their table, erasing the rings of condensation their glasses had left, I realized something. They were betting on a future that did not belong to them. They were celebrating a check that had already been written to someone else. My shift manager shouted my name from the kitchen window, snapping me back to the noise of the diner. I picked up the bus tub. It was heavy, smelling of ketchup and stale coffee. But as I walked back to the kitchen, the weight felt different. For the first time in 5 years, I was not just surviving, I was waiting, and the math was about to change. 3 days later, the bell above the diner door jingled. It was 2 a.m, the dead hours when the only customers were truckers and people running from something. I looked up from the counter, expecting a regular. Instead, I saw a suit. Not just any suit, a tailored, charcoal gray suit that cost more than the grill I was cleaning. The man wearing it looked out of place against the cracked vinyl and the flickering fluorescent lights. He scanned the room, his eyes landing on me. He didn't sit at a table. He walked straight to the counter. "Chloe?" he asked. His voice was calm, professional, a stark contrast to the clatter of dishes in the back. I wiped my hands on my apron, my heart giving a strange, nervous flutter. Debt collectors didn't wear suits like that. "Yeah," I said, my voice rough from exhaustion. "Can I get you something?" "Just a moment of your time," he said. He pulled a business card from his pocket and slid it across the formica. "Henderson and Associates. Estate law. My name is Mr. Henderson. I was your grandmother Beatrice's attorney." The world seemed to tilt. "Was?" I whispered. "She passed away peacefully yesterday morning," he said softly. "Grief is a luxury. I couldn't afford it." The sorrow was there, heavy and suffocating, but it was buried under layers of fatigue and survival instinct. I just nodded, gripping the edge of the counter. "I see. She wanted you to know," he continued, opening a leather portfolio, "and she wanted you to have this." He placed a thick envelope on the counter. "This is a copy of her last will and testament." I stared at it. "My father said she cut me out. He said she didn't want anything to do with me." Mr. Henderson's expression tightened. "Your father said a lot of things, Chloe. Most of them were untrue." He tapped the document. "Beatrice left everything to you. The estate, the investment portfolio, the real estate holdings. The total value is approximately $2,520,000. The number didn't make sense. It was just sounds. 2 million. It was a fantasy. "And my family?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "What did they get?" "Nothing," he said bluntly. "Beatrice was very specific. She knew what they did to you. She knew about the exclusion. She knew about the lies." Then he dropped the second bomb. "But they don't know that yet. In fact, they are currently under the impression that they are the sole beneficiaries. They've scheduled a pre-inheritance celebration for this Saturday at the lake house. They've invited friends, extended family, business associates. They're planning to toast to their new wealth." He looked me in the eye. "Your grandmother left specific instructions for this part too. She didn't want me to call them. She didn't want a letter. She wanted you to deliver the news." I looked down at my stained apron, at my worn-out shoes. "Me? Walk into that lion's den? They have a restraining order," I said. "They'll call the cops the second they see me." Mr. Henderson smiled, a small, cold smile. "Let them call. In fact, I'm counting on it. Because when they do, I'll be right behind you, and we'll see who the police actually remove." He stood up, buttoning his jacket. "You're not going there as a waitress, Chloe. You're going as the owner. The house they're partying in? As of yesterday, it belongs to you." He left a $100 bill on the counter for a cup of coffee he didn't drink. I watched him walk out into the night. I touched the envelope. It felt warm. It felt like a weapon. Saturday was 2 days away. And for the first time in 5 years, I wasn't afraid of my family. I was ready for them. The lake house sat at the end of a long gravel driveway, a sprawling monument to excess. It was bigger than I remembered, or maybe it just looked bigger because of the cars parked out front. BMWs, Lexuses, a brand new RV that still had the dealer sticker in the window. My father's truck was there, gleaming in the sun. It was the truck he'd bought instead of helping me with college. The truck he'd driven while I walked to work in the rain. I parked my beat-up sedan next to a Porsche. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. I wasn't wearing my uniform. I was wearing a black dress I'd bought at a thrift store, clean and pressed. I didn't look like a waitress. I looked like someone who had business to attend to. Mr. Henderson's car pulled up behind mine. He nodded at me through the windshield. It was time. I walked up the driveway, the gravel crunching under my boots. I could hear music, laughter, the clink of glasses. It sounded like a party. It sounded like a celebration. I walked through the open front door. The air conditioning hit me first cold and smelling of lilies as I moved toward the back deck. The house was full of people. My family. Their friends. Business associates. They were all there, drinking champagne, eating canapes, admiring the view of the lake. No one noticed me at first. I was just another guest, another face in the crowd. I navigated through the bodies, towards the French doors. That's where they were. Richard, Kimberly, Olivia, Cody, holding court, laughing. Kimberly was wearing a dress that probably cost more than my car. Olivia was showing off her engagement ring to a group of women. I stopped in the middle of the room. The chatter died down slowly as people noticed me. Confusion rippled through the crowd. Who is that? What is she doing here? Kimberly turned. Her smile vanished instantly. Her face went pale, then red. What are you doing here? She hissed, her voice cutting through the remaining conversation. The room went silent. Hello, Kimberly, I said, my voice steady. Richard, Olivia, Cody. Richard wouldn't look at me. He stared at his drink, swirling the ice. Coward. Get out, Kimberly snarled, stepping forward. You have no right to be here. We have a restraining order. I'll call the police. Go ahead, I said. Call them. You think I won't? She pulled out her phone, her fingers flying across the screen. You're trespassing. You're unstable. You're a danger to this family. Am I? I asked. Or am I just inconvenient? You're a stray dog, Cody sneered, stepping up beside his mother, looking for a handout. Get lost, Chloe. No one wants you here. Olivia laughed, a sharp, cruel sound. Seriously, Chloe, it's pathetic. Just leave. They stood there, united in their hatred, their disdain. They looked at me like I was dirt, like I was nothing. And in that moment, any lingering doubt, any tiny part of me that still wanted their love, evaporated. They didn't deserve my love. They didn't even deserve my anger. They deserved the truth. I'm not leaving, I said, my voice ringing out in the silent room. And I'm not here for a handout. I'm here because this is my house. Kimberly froze, phone to her ear. What did you say? I said. I repeated, louder this time. This is my house, and you're the ones who are trespassing. Before they could react, the front door opened again. Mr. Henderson walked in, carrying a briefcase. He walked straight to my side, a silent sentinel. The sight of him, the suit, the briefcase, the serious expression made the air leave the room. Kimberly lowered her phone. Richard finally looked up. Who is this? Kimberly demanded, her voice trembling slightly. Mr. Henderson, Richard whispered, his face draining of color. Beatrice's lawyer. Good afternoon, Mr. Henderson said coolly. I believe you were about to call the police, Mrs. Caldwell. Please, proceed. I have a few documents they might be interested in seeing as well. The trap was set. And they had walked right into it. Kimberly's finger hovered over the call button. The silence in the room was absolute, a vacuum where the party used to be. What documents? She demanded, though her voice lacked its usual venom. It sounded thin, brittle. Mr. Henderson opened his briefcase. The snap of the latches was loud enough to make Cody flinch. He pulled out a single sheet of paper, yellowed slightly at the edges. This, he said, holding it up, is the restraining order you filed 5 years ago. The one claiming Chloe was a danger to this family. Kimberly scoffed, trying to regain her footing. So what? It proves she's not allowed here. Officer, if you're listening, she gestured vaguely at the room, as if the police were already there. It proves something else entirely, Mr. Henderson interrupted. He walked over to the coffee table and laid the document down next to a tray of untouched caviar. Look at the witness signature, Beatrice Henderson. Richard frowned, leaning forward despite himself. Mom signed it? Did she? Mr. Henderson asked. He pulled out a second document, Grandma Beatrice's actual will, signed just days before she died. He placed it next to the restraining order. Compare them. The difference was obvious even from across the room. The signature on the will was shaky but elegant, a loop on the B that looked like a bird in flight. The signature on the restraining order was sharp, jagged, and rushed. Grandma Beatrice didn't sign that order, Mr. Henderson said, his voice ringing with authority. She hired a private investigator 3 years ago because she suspected something was wrong. She suspected you were keeping Chloe away from her. And when she saw this document, she knew. He turned his gaze to Kimberly. You forged her signature, Mrs. Caldwell, to keep Chloe out, to isolate her, to make sure she never told her side of the story. The color drained from Kimberly's face so fast she looked like a wax statue. That's ridiculous. She was old. Her handwriting changed. We have forensic analysis that says otherwise, Mr. Henderson countered smoothly. And we have your bank records, Kimberly. The payments you made to a notary who lost his license shortly after. It's all here. The guests were whispering now. The socialite mask was cracking. This wasn't just a family squabble anymore. This was a felony. Fraud. Forgery. Richard looked at his wife, his eyes wide. Kimberly, is this true? Don't look at me like that, she shrieked, the facade finally shattering. I did it for us. For our family. She was a problem, Richard. She was always going to be a problem. I handled it. By committing a crime? Chloe asked, stepping forward. By making me homeless? Kimberly whirled on her. You were 18. You could handle it. Peace? Mr. Henderson interjected. You didn't want peace. You wanted the inheritance without the heir. He looked around the room, and speaking of inheritance, the air in the room grew heavy, electric. The guests sensed the final blow coming. They stopped whispering. They just watched. Mr. Henderson picked up the will. Beatrice knew about the forgery. It broke her heart. But it also clarified her decision. He looked directly at Richard. She didn't just leave you out of the will because you ignored Chloe. She left you out because you let a criminal run your house. Kimberly sank onto the sofa, her hands covering her face. Cody and Olivia looked at each other, realizing their trust funds were evaporating in real time. Richard just stared at the floor, a man realizing he'd sold his soul for a counterfeit life. Now, Mr. Henderson said, closing his briefcase with a final click. Shall we discuss the finances? Because I believe there are some outstanding debts that need to be addressed. Debts? Richard asked, his voice shaking. Debts, Chloe said, stepping forward. She held a folder she'd brought from Mr. Henderson's office. She didn't shout. She didn't scream. She spoke with the calm precision of someone reading an inventory list. The RV in the driveway, she began. $78,000. Financed with a predatory loan because your credit was maxed out. Richard flinched. The new pool installation, she continued, turning a page. $48,000. Put on 3 different credit cards. Kimberly peeked through her fingers, her eyes wide with terror. The designer wardrobe, the jewelry, the catering for this party. $36,000. Chloe closed the folder. Total debt incurred in anticipation of this inheritance. $240,000. The number hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. $240,000. It was a fortune. It was ruin. But we can pay it, Olivia stammered, her voice high and panicked. There is no inheritance for you, Olivia, Mr. Henderson said. Or for Cody. Or for your parents. The estate, in its entirety, goes to Chloe. $2,520,000, Chloe said, plus the real estate portfolio, plus this house. Kimberly let out a wail, a sound of pure despair. She scrambled off the sofa, crawling towards Chloe on her knees. Chloe, please, we're family. We made mistakes, but we love you. We were just tough on you because we wanted you to be strong. Please, you can't let us lose everything. It was pathetic. It was grotesque. The woman who had sneered at her in the diner 3 days ago was now begging at her feet. Richard stepped forward, his face gray. Chloe. The house. This is our home. You can't take our home. Chloe looked at him. She looked at the man who had sat silently while she was kicked out into the cold. The man who had driven a $65,000 truck while she walked to work. You had a choice, Dad, she said softly. 5 years ago. You could have stopped her. You could have defended me. But you didn't. You chose your comfort over my safety. You chose peace over your daughter. I was scared, he whispered. She said you were dangerous. You knew I wasn't, Chloe said. You knew. But it was easier to believe the lie than to fight for the truth. That's the bystander's guilt, Dad. You watched me drown because you didn't want to get wet. She looked at the weeping Kimberly, at the terrified siblings. I won't pay your debts. I won't save you from the hole you dug. You spent money you didn't have on things you didn't need to impress people you don't like. Now you can figure out how to pay for it. She turned to Mr. Henderson. I'm ready to go. Wait, Richard cried, grabbing her arm. Where will we go? We have nowhere to go. Chloe pulled her arm away. She looked him in the eye, and for the first time, he was the one who looked small. You're resourceful, she said, echoing the words he had said to her when she asked for help with college tuition. You'll figure it out. She walked out the front door, leaving them in the wreckage of their own greed. The party was over. The house was hers. And the silence they were left with was deafening. The fallout was swift. The bank foreclosed on the lake house within 2 months. The luxury cars were repossessed. Kimberly was charged with fraud and forgery. Last I heard, she took a plea deal to avoid jail time, but her reputation in town was destroyed. Richard moved into a 1-bedroom apartment across town. He calls sometimes. I don't answer. Not out of spite, but out of peace. As for me, I didn't move into the mansion. I sold it. I sold the lake house, the investment properties, all of it. I kept enough to buy myself a modest home, a real home, with a garden and a porch swing and to put myself through college. The rest of the money, over $2 million, went into a trust. But not for me. I stood in front of the renovated building downtown. It used to be an old warehouse, abandoned and gray. Now, it was painted a soft blue, with large windows and a sign above the door. The Beatrice Foundation. It wasn't just a shelter. It was a launch pad. A place for kids who aged out of the foster system, for teenagers kicked out by their families at 18 because they were difficult or different. We offered housing, scholarships, job training, and most importantly, a family that wouldn't leave. Mr. Henderson stood beside me at the ribbon-cutting ceremony. She would be proud, he said, handing me the scissors. I hope so, I replied. But honestly, I'm proud. That's enough. I looked at the group of teenagers standing behind the ribbon, their eyes full of hope and uncertainty. I saw myself in every one of them. The fear, the resilience, the hunger for a place to belong. This isn't charity, I told the small crowd gathered for the opening. This is justice. Because the best way to get revenge on people who say you're worthless isn't to destroy them. It's to build something they could never understand. It's to plant a seed in the ground they tried to salt. I cut the ribbon. The crowd cheered, and as I walked through the doors of the foundation, leaving the memory of the diner and the lake house behind me forever, I realized something. My family didn't break me. They just cleared the ground for me to build something better. If you've ever had to build your own family from scratch, share your story below. And if this story made you feel seen, hit that like button.